So you've written a book called Be Yourself. I mean, who else did you think you were?
And dropping all of that and just being myself.
Nicky Kassapian, welcome to Double Espresso Studios down here in Legian, Kuta, Bali, Indonesia, and to the podcast of Significant.
Thank you very much, Sophie Digby. How wonderful to be here.
I thought so. This is round 2, isn't it?
Yes,
round 2, because round 1 didn't work out, right?
No, sliders.
Right. So you've written a book called Be Yourself. I mean, who else did you think you were? I mean, it's kind of a weird title, right?
Yes, well, Be Yourself, and the subtitle, The Art of Stepping Up, was actually, I think that actually, I always knew I was myself, but I was trying to be what and who I thought other people wanted me to be. So the art of stepping up was to actually step away from being, even thinking that I could possibly understand what it was that other people wanted me to be, and dropping all of that and just being myself.
That's like the please me people. You know,
yeah, the disease to please.
The disease to please.
Exactly.
Which I think we've all had, right? I think that's like the common cold.
It is indeed like the common cold. It's most people on the planet are walking around with the disease to please to some degree, in some shape or form. And in fact, everything is actually set up in society to encourage that kind of behaviour.
Right.
Marketing,
right,
school,
right,
you know, so on and so forth.
Right. So it's definitely we commercialized it. This kind of need to please.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And anyway, to go back a bit more about your journey, which, as I said, I mentioned just briefly before, was 21 years. And then I thought, no, it's a whole lifetime. And then, of course, you added at least 7 lifetimes, right? So Nicky Kassapian today is has invented soul support systems. And you're a transformational mentor.
Yeah.
And you're a speaker and author, obviously.
Yeah.
Be Yourself, The Art of Stepping Up by Nicky Kassapian, and an energy healer.
Yes.
So in the old days, that would have been called a woo-woo.
Yeah.
And why do we not use that word anymore? I mean, is it because it's more commonplace to have more energy healers and spiritual people?
Well, in fact, woo-woo, which is actually a great word, I love it, has been taken over by shaman. Everyone is a shaman.
Right.
And everyone has, my shaman.
Right.
Or your shaman. Actually, healer, woo-woo.
Right.
I mean, it's all one and the same thing.
Right. It's just another word in a different language, right?
Yes. So it's kind of the latest trend is not a healer or energy healer or woo-woo, it's shaman.
So what I mean, having started basically in this lifetime, on this earth, on this island, your spiritual journey, I think that was around about 21 years ago, so same age as my son, actually. So you started in the year 2000, and your first breach into this path was where or what with?
Okay, well, actually, I would probably go back a little bit further than that, because I was living in Jakarta for a while. And when I was living in Jakarta, I was already entering into this world, as we call it. Basically through connection to some Indonesian friends who were in the IKJ, which is the Institute of Fine Arts. And they were going to see a healer. And so I went along. And it kind of began from there. And I was also doing a bit of yoga. I was also doing some tarot card readings and things like this. So it was already in the field, let's say back in the early 90s. But I moved to Bali in 96. So yes, and that was when we met. Physically met, because of course we'd already met through the paintings.
Right, because actually I was trying to find you in Jakarta to buy a painting.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Wow, and that was so many moons ago.
Indeed.
And then since then, so you'd already started, obviously. So you'd already found the this area of interest. It was obviously calling to you.
Yeah, I was very curious.
Yeah.
And I think it was just, Yeah, so something was being activated simply by being in Indonesia, I would like to think. And I think from my ancestors that was already there, certainly from my grandmother on my father's side. So yeah, but in Indonesia it became more and more activated. And then when I came to Bali, definitely, then things really started to happen more and more.
And at that time you came to Bali, you were teaching English.
Yes.
Right, so along with everything else that you do, you're also a really amazing teacher. And I think that the art of communication and the art of sharing and understanding what the other person is trying to get to or where they're trying to reach is also a very important part of what you do now. I mean, that's a great foundation to have been a teacher.
Definitely, Sophie. And I think that I'm so grateful that I actually had 18 years of teaching. And it was very much teaching in order that people could then communicate clearly what it was they were wanting to actually say, regardless as to whether they were from a different culture, right? So that clear intentional communication of like, what do I want to say? Why do I want to say it? Therefore, how do I say it so it comes across in a way that can be received? Created a really good foundation for me then to continue working with people in other ways to also then basically do the same thing, but through a different window, because it's still about communicating, like, so what's going on for you? You know, how do you express that? And then being able to see, okay, so what's needed here in order to support a person who's wanting to express or explore a certain situation and move through it, move beyond it.
Right. So I think probably with the first teaching, it was basically language skills that you're teaching, and now I think you're actually teaching life skills and emotional skills. So it kind of goes much deeper in this way of asking people to communicate with themselves as well, isn't it?
Yes, very much so. It's very much about the learning how to relate to your inner world and therefore indeed communicate with yourself, which then enables you to, then enables you to show up in the world more fully in your authentic expression.
Right, and you help people through this, because I think there's quite a number of people in this world that aren't quite certain if they've got the disease to please, or maybe they're just uncertain about very many things, or maybe they've gone through some certain experiences that have then led them to interact with the world in certain forms and formats, not always positive, obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, and so that's why, excuse me, I think I have some water, one moment.
Yeah. So I think with that question, what we're just trying to find out is, are we as people, well, obviously we are we the sum of all our experiences, and how they influenced us negatively or positively or significantly, actually. How do we show up for ourselves? And obviously there's quite a lot of negativity within those experiences that have been non-productive, I would say, to some people, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah, so this is why I call what I do, like, I would label myself, for want of a better expression, as a transformational mentor, because it's not, what happens here is not about taking someone just through one thing. It can be a journey over time. And so we are the sum of our experiences, the sum of our beliefs, or our mindsets, as beliefs are now called, and how we have chosen to respond to or react to the events and situations that have occurred in our life, then create how we then interact with ourselves and with others in the world. So some of them have had a major impact, and we may have taken it in a way that has become destructive, or we may have taken it in a way that has then become constructive. So clearly my role is working with people to assist them to move through the more destructive patterns, shall we say, and to really encourage more constructive and patterns which are going to be helpful rather than impeding, and to help to unpack things, because sometimes when you're in what's the phrase, you can't see the wood for the trees, and often when you're in the woods you actually need someone else there just to help you so that you can start to see the trees more easily. And then as you can then see the trees more easily, then you become your own master, if you like. And then it's about checking in every now and again. Oh, I'm coming up against this. You know, I need a little bit of extra support. I need to be seen because I'm hitting a blind spot here. Yeah. So. And
then, so you're there to guide them, and so you can definitely. I know you've helped many people over the years, transform definitely, and I think also you've been instrumental in being able to change the way they talk almost to themselves about themselves. So it's very much the communication and the language or the thought language that we use. Doubt is always a good one, right? And a lot about the ability to create what you want in your life, and if you don't get it, it's probably usually because of the phrasing you're using within your thought pattern.
Definitely. So this is what really intrigues me as someone who really loves to communicate, is how do we speak to ourselves? And doubt is part of the human condition. So how do we move through doubt? Why is it there? What purpose is it serving? If we look at it in let's say a positive light or a constructive light, then doubt is there for you to check in. Actually, is this something that I really want? And if it is, then okay, what am I telling myself about why I can or cannot have it? And sometimes it can be something incredibly simple that perhaps you once heard the phrase, I want never gets.
Right, didn't we all? Yes.
Yes, right. And so, well, that takes out creativity. That takes out manifesting anything.
Right.
Because you need to want something in order to be able to bring it about.
Right.
So,
So that whole thing is I want gets nothing, because that's would we say that's
limiting
societal, limiting belief in a societal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And how much damage do you think that's done into the world?
Huge amount. Which is why then people will use other means to get what they want, pretending that actually they're not doing that. So that's where from my view, that's where then manipulation comes in. People-pleasing behaviours come in, because if you can meet everyone else's needs, then maybe, just then maybe, your own needs
You'll get that new
met.
Bicycle, right?
Yes.
Or whatever it was back in the day when you were 6.
But it won't be coming from a place of wanting, it'll be coming from a place of, I'll be given it because people will love me so much that they'll then give me the bike.
And then there's also that belief of the lack of it. So I think sometimes that when we wish to create, sometimes within that language, it's really because I want it because I don't have it, or you're scared of not getting it, or we want it but we're not getting it.
Yeah.
We're focusing on, I suppose we're just focusing on the need of it, but maybe it's just the worry of not getting it, or the doubt, or once again I think it comes down to doubt. Or fear,
well, it does.
Fear,
It comes to doubt and it comes to fear, and it's very interesting because when we're operating from a place of lack, then when we're saying we're either asking for something or we're saying that that's what we want, we're operating from below 51%. We're operating from a place of lack. Right. So therefore, it's actually coming across as a demand.
Right.
And if you make a request to a person or to an energetic from a place of lack, from a place of demand, then you're much more likely to get the answer no. Whereas if you're actually operating from a place of fullness, and it only needs to be 51% over the mark, 51% fullness, you are much more likely to get a yes. Including, even to this was something that came up with someone I was working with recently. The need to belong. So for human beings, we have 3 fundamental needs: to be loved, to belong, and to be accepted. Right? So if we fear that we're not receiving any of those, then we go into trying to navigate how we can get those needs met. But if we want to belong, what we need to do is actually give that feeling to ourselves first. So try to recall a time where you can remember truly belonging, whether it's with yourself or with another, whatever situation, and then fill yourself up with that feeling. And then when you actually want to then ask others if you belong, or you would like to feel more like you belong in a certain situation, you won't be demanding. You'll already be full with that vibration, so to speak, that frequency. So naturally, more and more is going to come to you. It's the same with things.
So yeah, so I think the frequency I'm finding very fascinating. That sound can help raise your level, but also bring in other things, and has various different frequencies have almost like different functions within emotional, spiritual, and health, right, which I always think was fascinating with all these binaural beats and the meditative mind music.
Yeah.
The frequency, I mean, how easy or difficult is it to raise your vibration?
Okay. I would actually say it's easy. It's an awful lot easier than people think it is. Because if you can recognize what you're telling yourself, and whether that's helpful or impeding, then you can switch it. So if you can see it, you can stop it. And if you can stop it, you can drop it.
I like that.
Right?
See it,
So it's the spot it, stop it, drop it.
Right.
So if you actually practice that, then you can very quickly change something around. It does require that you take personal responsibility for your own part in any given situation. Right? So frequency actually is very easy to shift. However, if you're operating from victim consciousness and you're finding that your needs are being met quite easily when you operate from victim consciousness, there may not be the motivation to actually switch out of victim consciousness, raise your vibration, and therefore actually acquire things or do things in a completely different way.
Interesting.
Right? So it's only when it becomes really, really uncomfortable that then just perhaps you're going to have the willingness to switch.
Right. And sometimes I think some people get pushed into that situation. I mean, I've had friends who've gone through hell and high water, literally, and then now they're on a super, like, vibrational journey, like massive breakup followed by a massive accident, car accident, or followed by, and then bit by bit they've now been turned off that path and into this path. So I would say it's not always their choice.
Well, what I would say is that actually on some level of consciousness, there's been an agreement somewhere along the line that this is the path that I'm going to take in order to move through those things which are keeping me in a holding position. Because actually the greatest work and the greatest transformation occurs through the most adverse situations. Now, that's not to say we don't need to go and say, okay, bring it on, give me all the adverse situations you possibly can because I want to become a higher frequency. No, you don't need to do that. However, because there's enough already within each of us, it's already there. So, but what can happen is when you've been hanging out in your comfort zone, what's going to move you out of your comfort zone?
Not much.
Something that's going to pull the rug from underneath you. And frequently that's a situation or an event which is really uncomfortable, where literally the rug is pulled from under you. That causes you to stop, to pause and go, oh, wait a minute. Do I want, and you have a choice, do I want to carry on as before?
Right.
Some people do, they just go back to where they were before.
Yeah.
Or do I actually want to take this opportunity with everything kind of disintegrating all around me to go, actually, who am I? What am I? What's important to me? What really matters to me? And how do I want to show up in the world? For myself and then for others.
It's like taking charge.
Yes.
Right. And as you said, make responsible decisions.
Make a conscious, deliberate choice, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's go slightly more to actually how you impart your soul systems and your teachings and how, how does a person contact you? Why would they contact you? And how would you walk them through, let's say, an issue that they have or a continuous issue they have?
Okay.
Because I know that you have had clients over many numbers of years, the same clients that just move higher and higher into their own energy and their own vibration.
Yeah. So when I'm working one-to-one with people, frequently there's been a word-of-mouth recommendation, which is great because when I do work with people, I tend to take them, or they tend to take themselves and allow me to escort them on quite a deep dive. So there needs to be an element of trust there in the field and a willingness to actually go there. So there's personal recommendations. There's also my website, which is www.nickykassapian.com. And then people can contact me through the website, where there are I call them actually the B sessions are up there. So people can book in and have a consultation. I work via distance, I work in person, I work over Zoom. I also work doing distance healing, like remote healing, because energy, everything is energy, and energy moves, right? So it's quantum physics. So
it can travel anywhere.
Absolutely.
It is everywhere.
It's pure, like 9/10 of everything is intention.
Yeah.
So the intention for me, for example, to send healing to my mum in England, well, as soon as I have that intention, off it goes. So it doesn't really matter whether someone's here with me in person or whether they're somewhere else. There are so many ways, and with technology, it's very easy to do. So those are ways that I work, in a sense, one-to-one. Sometimes I take people through a one-on-one personal retreat, and I'll do an intensive with them, like 5 days. Sometimes I've also done a week with people, and that's massive change. So that's really dedicating, to a minimum 2 hours in the morning, break for lunch, 2 hours in the afternoon. But in fact, the field is held from as soon as someone books in, and even for a session, as soon as someone books in for a session, it already starts happening.
Because you hold that space with that vibration and intention.
Yeah. So that's how I work one-on-one, but I also work with small groups, and I've done kind of mini retreats for people and different kinds of retreats. So some of them are they're more bespoke.
Woo-woo.
The more woo-woo. Others are, maybe I also teach meditation, so I do silent meditation retreats with a slight switch, a slight difference. And then also I work with corporate groups.
Right, we were talking about you just did quite a large one with Caterpillar, right?
Yeah.
What about trucks and dumper trucks and?
Well, that's what they do. But what I was doing is actually I've created something which I call leading from within, and this actually not only applies to people in the corporate sector, but it applies to all of us, because we all need to be leading from within rather than from the outside. So just to backtrack a bit, like in the opening of my book, the opening kind of lines are, we like to think the world is coming at us. It's not. The world
we were a bumper car, right? And
right. So we like to think the world is coming at us, but it's not. The world is actually coming from us, from what we think about ourselves and others, how we act towards ourselves and others, experiences we've had, so on and so forth. So leading from within means you actually really take a look. You go inside and have a look, because whatever you're operating through in your inner world, in your inner game, and how that aligns with your outer world in your outer game, is going to have an impact not just on your life, but on the life of everyone else. So getting those into alignment and really kind of stepping up in your personal integrity, your personal responsibility, knowing your own mind, knowing how your mind works, so that's where meditation comes in, is that then you become your own master.
And on a corporate level, I think this is really very much needed. Going back to the integrity and corporate conversations that are sometimes had.
Yes, because
they're not necessarily beneficial to the world or the population or the employees or many other different.
Indeed,
sectors.
because there's a disconnect between the human and then the corporate. Right, and actually, leading from within is more about kind of, drop out of the head and drop into the heart, and start connecting on a more human level, and recognize the commonalities that are between all of you. By doing that, and by upping your integrity, by becoming more aligned in your inner and outer game, in your personal values and the company values, what happens is your communication then becomes clearer and more intentional. Then the way that you actually interact and you navigate change, for example, which is happening constantly to all of us, then you can navigate things in such a more easeful and potentially effective and efficient way than when you're disconnected from that human aspect. So corporates, yes, are very much heading in that direction, because leadership without that aspect is quite hollow.
And I think, and this day and age when the vibration is rising, generally, across the world. I think that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Just to go back, because with the way that you transform people, you use various techniques and healing, right? So I believe you've done Reiki, but you've done quite a few, right?
Yeah.
So which ones?
Okay, so first of all, what I would clarify here is I assist and support people to transform.
Right.
Rather than me transforming them, right? So I hold,
yes, yes.
So it's slight difference.
Just, I mean, of course, a huge difference, really. I mean, it's just in the choice of words that already has a different.
Yeah. So it's not about me doing; it's about me allowing, right? So in terms of the energy work, I was trained as a Reiki practitioner and also a Reiki Master, and then and there's many different types of Reiki. So I'm an Ushi Reiki Master, but I've also trained in Sikkim Reiki also. Then I'm also a craniosacral practitioner, an advanced level biodynamic craniosacral practitioner or therapist.
That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is. But anyway, so that's another one.
Right.
Then also through combining actually those two modalities, because what happens is when I work, I'm not actually doing either one or the other because something else is coming through. I don't mean an entity. And I don't mean I'm channeling, but what happens is when you're working at that level of frequency, is I'm not working from the floor. I'm working from way above the roof, is the only way I can explain it. And so energetically, I'm connecting to the person's inner physician, because we all have one, their innate intelligence, and their aspect of superconsciousness. And that's what guides and leads the session. So I'm there as the holder of that field.
Bridging.
And I'm the bridge.
Right,
I'm the conduit, if you like.
Right.
And what happens is the energy will go wherever it is most needed for that person on physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and beyond. Combination of all of those. So, for example, if someone comes to me, and if I can give a very simple example here.
Please, yes.
Let's say someone comes and they're like, oh, I've just got this really, really bad back, lower back, for example. I'm like, okay, lower back.
Financial.
Well, financial and also
and
lack of support, right? So then I would maybe ask a few questions of kind of like, okay, so is there, because you want to check in, you don't want to just assume. So checking in, is there any area in your life where you're maybe wishing you had more support? And from there, things will start to open. Now, it may not always be about receiving support from others. It may be, where am I not supporting myself, right? And actually, by just working with that conversation, they may not need to go on the table at all, because something other will be shown. So where in your life have you felt this before? And maybe there's a guided meditation process that I take them through.
So you would choose. I mean, it's almost like a physician. You're going to recommend what's best for them to move from this maybe stuck mode into one of flow.
Yes. So it's very much about. I work very highly intuitively, or I am highly intuitive. So I work in a very intuitive way, and it's about just choosing what is going to be the best tool to support whoever I'm working with. Turn on the on switch so that the energy can start to then flow again, right? So that the blockage starts to dissolve. And it's rather than it's about releasing the blockage or getting rid of the blockage. Glass of water. Imagine we've got ice in this glass of water. So the way that I work is there are certain ice cubes which are ready to dissolve. They just need to have the right temperature. So that right little ingredient or that right question. And then it just dissolves and it reintegrates back into the water. So it's one.
So you said as the inner physician listens to you and suddenly perks up its head and goes, okay, right, this is what we're going to do. That's fascinating. And I think many retreats and groups that we have crowding into Bali right now, I find quite... what do I find? I'm very careful to choose my right words. I'm finding it slightly daunting, actually, because I really wonder if they've had the experiences that you have. Have they spent 21 days? It's
21 years.
21 years in your life to even come in and touch such a sensitive or possibly sensitive area, that if it's not taken in the right direction to dissolve, it can cause quite a lot of a lot of mayhem, I think.
I think, just to go back a little bit to your other question when you were saying what modalities, so I just gave you the energy ones. So I've also been working with nonviolent communication, also with family gestalt therapy, so family constellation work, and a whole lot of other ones, including the meditation, etc., etc. So I think, yes, over time, one can amass quite a toolbox from which you can then select.
And you give as well these tools to.
Yeah, I share them with other people.
Right.
Well, that's a lot of what's in the book too.
Right. Because I think sometimes, which is where I came back to this retreat thing, is that one wonders which tools are being shared in these millions of retreats that are happening in Bali.
So I think it's always, it comes back to intention. I'm going to answer your question in a slightly kind of roundabout way. However, it depends on the intention. So for some facilitators, practitioners, retreat organizers or runners, if their intention is to empower people to then take charge of their life, then they will be sharing what they have. They're not a wisdom keeper and a wisdom holder, they're a wisdom sharer, right? There's a difference. Plus, you're not in a power over position, you're working from a power with position. So, of course, if you've been doing something for 21 years and someone's new coming in, they may not have the 21 years experience that you do. It doesn't mean that they don't have any wisdom themselves. So there's a learning on both sides. I think what can happen, especially with the fact that it's become a business, and I mean that in the wellness business, it's a multi-million-dollar business. So there's many people who are, let's say, they go and do a 1-week retreat about personal development or breath work, and then they get a certificate, and suddenly, I'm a breath worker, and I'm going to run my own retreat.
Those are the worrying ones, to me.
Yeah, so it's great if you've got support, if you've maybe had some training in psychology, if you've had trauma-related training, because breath work just in itself, or any of the work we do, can bring up trauma. Are you able to hold the field for your clients or not? Yeah. And if you're not, then really where's your responsibility here? Because if you have people on retreat and then, you've done a lot of work with them and you've brought a lot of stuff up, and then you go and there's no ongoing support for them, that's not actually terribly healthy. Right. And it is disturbing and it is worrying. So I think it's very important to, if you're thinking of going on a retreat, check out the facilitator. Find out how much experience they've had.
I mean, because otherwise it sounds like there's a lot of learner drivers on the road.
Yes. I think that
worrying.
Appears to be happening at the moment. Yeah. And yes, everybody needs to go through a learning process, but there's a certain number of hours. It used to be classically trained that you would do, 1,000 hours before you start really facilitating for groups.
Right. And that possibly has, that certificate has kind of gone out the window. It doesn't exist.
I don't think it exists anymore.
Right.
And I think, it used to be that any practitioner worth their salt, so to speak, continues working with their own mentor. Right. I don't stop working. Right. I still see therapists. I still go and see people when I need to.
To develop and add more to your toolbox.
Yes, and also because it's I'm an ongoing work in process.
Yeah. As we all should be.
Indeed, as we all are.
Yes, indeed. Your book number 2. Are you working on a number 2 book?
Yes, this is what happened with book number 1. People ask me, so are you writing a book? And I'd be like, and then, are you? So you're writing a book? Yeah. And then, and then eventually say, yes, okay, I'm going to write a book. So now this is happening with number 2. And yes, there is a book waiting in the wings. And
manifesting itself.
Yes, it's just getting itself organised, and then it's going to slap me over the head, and it'll come out. So it's coming. There've been a few things that I've been wanting to just kind of get into place. But yes, I'm aware that it's knocking.
It is knocking, and I imagine that's because it's one of the best mediums, and especially if you do the audiobook, it's a great medium to reach more people and have that impact are more people and give them the tools that there are obviously so many people are looking for these days
Yeah.
to manage slightly what's going on in the world.
Definitely, and that was why I did book number 1. Actually, was how to reach more people in a more effective way, in more efficient time.
And the fact that you can have it as a reference book, so you can just pick it up, open a page. There's a lesson in there somehow, which always happens to me. So yes, that's the Be Yourself: The Art of Stepping Up by Nicky Kassapian. And just before we go, Nicky, and we wrap up today, before we go for lunch, if people want to reach out to you, your Instagram is at...
My Instagram is at Nicky Kassapian.
Right, which is NICKYKASSAPIAN.
Yes.
And also your website, which is where they can contact you and look at the different
things that I offer, is www.nickykassapian.com. Right. The book is also there, and I should just add the book is also an audio, and it's my voice doing the audio. And
is that available on Kindle? Or?
It's available on Kindle and through Audible, and it's also an ebook. And yes, people do say, people who have this book actually say, like, it's my Bible.
Yeah, it's my daily thoughts. What's going on in my life? Open that page, and there's a nugget in there for you to meditate on. Actually, it's a beautiful book. So congratulations on the book. We're looking forward to book number 2. Nicky Kassapian, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Sophie Digby. Okay. It's been a pleasure too.
Thank you. So significant. Thank you.